Hello and welcome to the Alula webinar. My name is Kevin Hoffman. I am the Content Marketing Manager for Alula. And today we're going to be talking about the Connect XT Communicator. It allows you to take over or upgrade Simon panels in 5 minutes or less. On the agenda for today's discussion, first I'll do some introductions. Then we'll look at the history of the Simon panels development. We'll talk about the sunset that's threatening it and how we can save it. Then we'll look at how along the way we're also going to modernize it with our new innovations. We'll show you a quick video that just shows how easy it is to install this Connect XT. And then we're going to talk about our Connect Up program. It's a really great program that's going to allow you to take advantage and lower your costs while you're replacing those Simon cellular cards. Really quick, for those of you who are new to Alula, we are 100% partner focused. We are an all-in-one provider. It means we've got both the hardware and the interactive services that allows us to provide your customers a more seamless experience and allows us to deliver more innovation to you, our partner. Today's presenter is Paul Saldin. He's our VP of Engineering. He held key engineering positions at ITI, which later became Interlogix, and GE Security. He co-founded Resolution Engineering in 2005 and Resolution Products in 2009, which ultimately was one of the companies that formed Alula. And he's got over 25 years of experience in engineering security technology. Paul, so good to have you here today.
Great to be here, Kevin.
Paul, before we get started on the Connect XT, I want to go back in time and talk about the development of the Simon panel. Incredibly popular panel in the market, really revolutionary for its time, and you really had a front row seat to that process, Paul. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was a young engineer right out of college back in the mid-'90s when the Simon panel was developed. It was actually, many people might not know this, but the Simon panel came out of a failed joint venture between ITI and Honeywell back in those days. We had a joint venture going to put a do-it-yourself panel into retail, and that flopped when it hit the retail shelves. And the resulting technology, or the technology that was developed for that program, ended up becoming the Simon panel. And I had a front row seat just by virtue of being a young engineer. I was a couple of years out of college. I was an RF engineer, a radio engineer, and I was involved in the design of that alarm panel, designing the radio receiver and such. And it was really a fun project because the Simon it was a very unique architecture in its day. Back in those days, pretty much everything was a metal can with a bus and keypads and other peripherals out on the bus, and things were distributed around the home on that data bus. And the Simon panel was the first panel to put everything in one box, where we had the actual user interface on the front of the box that contained all the electronics and the backup battery and everything. And that really drove a new way of installing panels in the marketplace. It drove a lot of new behaviors in our marketplace because it really packed a lot of features in a small, low-cost box. It lowered the price of entry. And a lot of the neat things we did were, we redid the user interface, kind of rethunk how the user interface worked, kind of getting away from that off, stay away paradigm to something a little bit new and different. And another really important feature that we added was voice enunciation, which was a unique feature in its day as well.
And Paul, I understand you actually were the voice of Simon for that voice enunciation. How did that happen?
Yeah. That is a funny story. So I'm in my mid-20s, and this is our one of our big panels there at ITI. We had a voice chip in that panel that was developed by Texas Instruments, and we were using that for our voice synthesis, and it turned out that my voice, for whatever reason, was the best-sounding voice out of that voice chip, the way it was doing its signal processing. So I became the voice of the Simon 3 panel. That's a Simon 3 that you see in this picture here. I actually dug that out of my garage and took a picture of it. But yeah, my voice was the voice. I spent a few days in a studio recording a bunch of phrases that got put into that voice chip, and that's how we did the first panel.
Paul, just for fun, could you give us a sample of what one of those phrases sounded like?
System disarmed. That was that's the one everybody heard the most often, right? Doors and windows on, system disarmed. Those are some of the phrases. But yeah, the panel dominated for many years. It was a very important panel in the industry. Drove a new paradigm, like I said. And another interesting tidbit, that's kind of relevant to our discussion here about Alula is just talking about the team that developed that Simon panel. A lot of those engineers work at Alula today, believe it or not. I am just one of those guys that works at Alula. There's 10 or 11 other people at Alula that are from those old days back in the mid-'90s at ITI, and so we bring a lot of expertise in the security industry that dates back a lot of years. We're not newcomers to the space. We understand the space, and we're really building on that engineering expertise in designing this new product that we're going to talk about today, which is the Connect XT.
Well, that's a great transition. As you mentioned, that the deep bench of experience that we had of engineers and familiarity with the Simon panel put us in a perfect position to design the solution that would help prolong the lifespan of those Simons well into the future and past this current cellular sunset. So ultimately, this is what we came up with. Paul, tell us about the Connect XT.
Sure. Yeah, the Connect XT comes out of that expertise we just talked about, but also the two companies that formed Alula, Resolution Products and IP DataTel. There was a lot of expertise developed in both of those companies when it comes to communicators, alarm communicators as well. Both companies had communicator lines in the marketplace for many years, and we've kind of brought that expertise into our new line of communicators that includes the BAT Connect, which many of you may know about, but also the Connect XT, which is this new product we're talking about today. As we know, the Simon XT was popular. XT, XTI, XTI5, and XTI5i over the past probably 10 or 15 years, very popular panel line. We think about 1.8 million homes were secured with this panel line over the past decade or so, and a lot of them are out there today. Most are running an older cellular radio. Some of them are still on the old POTS lines. And the Connect XT is a radio with a brand new cellular technology called M1. We'll talk about that in a few minutes a little bit more deeply. But really the core value proposition of the Connect XT is that, look, you can take that Simon panel that's on the wall at your customer's house, been running really well for 8, 10, 12 years, and you can upgrade it to get around these sunsets. So the cellular sunset will drive upgrades. The POTS obviously are going away little by little still. And the other case to be made for a Connect XT is just the feature upgrades that we can bring to the Simon XT panels, and we'll talk about those a little bit more as well. So those are the two main use cases here. You've got the sunset replacements and then upgrading your customers to a much better feature set than they've got right now.
Absolutely, Paul. I mean, those Simons were fantastic, and people still love them. But obviously, the industry continues to innovate, and we're able to bring that innovation to those Simon customers. Paul, talk a little bit about what we're able to add to the Simon experience that wasn't there the first time around.
Well, first I'll talk a little bit about what you're able to leave in the house, which is the Simon panel and all the sensors, right? And that's a big deal. These people that are your customers or even other dealers' customers, they're used to that panel. They have those sensors on the windows and doors. They're still operating just fine. A lot of instances they've painted around them, and you don't want to tear those down and have a painting project to go along with your installation project. So we leave all that in the home. But when we put in the Connect XT, we open up a whole new set of functionality that you can bring to your customers. The doorbell camera is one of those. You'll see that camera right here in this display here. That is a very popular product, giving you a view out your door and a view of who's at your door, pressing the doorbell, of course. But also there's a number of different features we bring aside from video. We can add lights and locks and garage door openers and thermostats, all of these home automation features that come along with a new system and bring, in a lot of cases, a new RMR stream to your business will keep your customers happy and will keep them from being susceptible to what they're seeing out there in the marketplace. You know, customers are seeing that other companies are offering these sorts of services. And so with the Connect XT, not only are we addressing the sunset and keeping the alarm reporting going, but we're also offering all these new services and all these new features that allow your customers to stay current. And that's very, very powerful for you as a dealer.
Yeah, Paul, you really hit the nail on the head. I mean, customers are seeing commercials out there. You know, we all watch the Super Bowl. They're going to come back naturally to you and ask about stuff like that doorbell camera and other kinds of video services. And as Paul points out, you're able to leave the existing system intact, leave those sensors there. Don't turn it into a major home overhaul project, but you can still bring those great modern features like a doorbell camera, indoor and outdoor cameras. So, Paul, let's talk about our full line of video services.
Yeah, so just a little more focus on the video here. We have 4 camera models today. I'm just going to go through these one by one. We already talked about the doorbell camera a little bit. The neat thing about the doorbell camera, I happen to think it's the best looking camera in the marketplace for a doorbell camera, but I'm a little biased. It comes in black or white, and different face plates you can put on that camera to match the decor, and also 3 different mounting plates to match the brick molding and angle it the right way to get that view of the porch that you want to get. We also have up in the upper left corner there is our outdoor bullet camera that we call, and that is a waterproof and ruggedized outdoor housing, Ethernet cable or Wi-Fi for that, and put that under the eaves. You can see the yard, you can see the driveway. It's a very nice outdoor camera with a couple Wi-Fi antennas you can see there. And then on the bottom right are the 2 indoor cameras. The 360 PT has the pan and tilt functionality, so you can remotely move that around and look around the room. And then the simple, the mini we call it on the right there, is just a simple indoor camera. The neat thing about the way we've implemented the cameras is that as you can see there, our mobile app integrates the video feed right in with all of your security items. So you may be looking at your sensor status, you may be looking at arming and disarming, and right along with that, right on your dashboard, you can have the video feed. And it allows you to look at clips that have been captured as well as live feed. And those clips are captured via the motion detector. So motion detector can trigger the clip capture. And it's kind of handy because right on your dashboard screen there, you can see the last view of that particular camera. So you can see what's going on at your home without even clicking anything, right in line with all your security status.
Yeah, just bringing that new kind of interactive app with all of that functionality embedded within it is itself a huge upgrade that you're able to provide through the Connect XT. And it's surprising how easy it is to make this change. Paul, it seems like you guys really engineered this to be an install that is very easy to accomplish.
Yeah, we'll just talk a little bit here about some of the nuts and bolts of the Connect XT and how it works. So anybody who's seen Simon panels over the years knows how they work and how they mount. They've got that hinged mounting that's been popular over the years, and I'm sure you've all also aware of the radio slot there in the back. So we're no exception, right? The Connect XT goes in that same radio slot in the back, and the antenna in the slot that ends up being on top when you rotate it back up. One of the neat things about the Connect XT is because of the cellular technology we're using, it's very low current, and so that translates into some better battery life for the Simon in the case where the AC power goes out. But anyway, we gain access to the panel through that interface connector just like any other radio. We do a deep integration with the panel through that connection, and we are able to support the zone tokens, for example, that are in the Simon panel. The Simon uses a token table for zone names, typically, rather than spelling them out like a lot of the panels in the marketplace, and we have full support for those tokens. And so when you plug this thing in and get it up and running, we're going to read the zone names out and present them in the app for the user, and they have full access to those to change them and modify them using the token table in the Simon panel as it exists today. So the cellular connection is Verizon or AT&T. We recognize that sometimes one of those will be better in one location in the country than another, and so we offer a different model for Verizon and AT&T. And you really have that full connection then all the way through our platform to the mobile apps, and you get that full connection to the central station for monitoring and out to the mobile apps for user control. And I don't know how many people on this call are familiar with the BAT Connect and the Connect Plus, but both of those products operate in a very similar manner just in terms of how they interact with our network. The BAT Connect is a communicator that supports a lot of the distributed panels in the marketplace, and the Connect Plus is another panel that we make. But with the Connect XT, you get all of Alula just the same as with those other products. You get the full central station reporting and notifications. Firmware updates are a very popular feature. People just love our firmware updates. They happen behind the scenes, no truck rolls, and we like to keep everything out in the marketplace up to date, just like your cell phone will stay up to date or your PC will stay up to date. We keep your security hardware up to date as well, and the Connect XT is no exception there. So that's just kind of the nuts and bolts of how it works. It uses that slot in the back of Simon just like any other communicator would, and dives deep into the panel through that interface connector.
And one of the things that we're doing is we're really upgrading the cellular technology to make it more modern. Talk about how the Cat M1 and why it's so important.
Well, the security industry has typically had to piggyback on the cellular industry's fixation with handsets, right? Handsets are the killer app for a cellular company, Verizon or an AT&T. That's where they make their money. That's their bread and butter. And so all of the innovation and movement in the cellular markets over the years has been in support of handsets and in supporting higher and higher bandwidths, being able to do video and other high bandwidth things on your handset, and that makes a lot of sense. But the security case and the IoT kind of use case for cellular has been gaining steam over the years, and finally the cellular industry has listened, and they've decided to split out those use cases into a different technology track than the handsets. And Cat M1 or Category M1 is one of the first implementations of that. Category M1 is a lower bandwidth, and that means lower data rate, lower power consumption, lower cost cellular standard for use cases like security and IoT. And it was deployed nationwide by both of the major carriers in 2018, so it's been out there for a couple of years now. And Alula was one of the first to integrate this technology, or I think the first to integrate this technology into our radios. I think we've been shipping this for about a year now in our products. And that's the technology we built into Connect XT. A couple of the neat things about Cat M1, one of the great things about it is, like I said, it's narrower bandwidth, and what that means is it penetrates better because there's fewer data bits going through the channel essentially, and when you have a tighter channel, you have less noise in the channel, and therefore you get better range. And one of the other great things about it is the cellular band that it uses is a lower frequency band than typical cellular bands. It uses 700 megahertz band. Typically, some of the other cellular channels like the LTE, 4G LTEs are up in the 2 gigahertz range, and the lower frequencies tend to follow contours of the terrain better and also tend to penetrate building materials better. And so when you have an installation where you may be a ways from a cell tower, or you may be in a basement, or you may be in a stucco building, you're going to have much better luck with an M1 radio than you will with a 4G LTE a lot of times because of those lower frequencies and because of the lower bandwidth. So it gives you that better range. It gives you that better handling of tough installation cases. And, you know, one of the other things, or one of the primary great things about M1 is not only is it 4G LTE compatible, but it's also been designed into the 5G spec. So 5G is coming up, and everybody knows about 5G. It's high bandwidth. Well, the folks that put together 5G recognize that, yes, we want to make that high bandwidth path for all the great high bandwidth things we want to do with 5G, but we also want to bring along these new standards that are part of the 4G LTE standard that support the security and IoT space. And so they're bringing M1 along in the 5G spec. And what that means for you is that when you put an M1 radio in today, in the case where 4G LTE goes away, who knows, right? In 7, 8, 9, 10 years, 4G LTE may be taken down as well. They've shown a history of that. 5G will adopt the M1 technology, and these radios will continue to operate out there. And that'll definitely save the truck rolls and save the sunset headache from happening another time.
Absolutely. You know, I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, you may have to deal with the sunset today, but that doesn't mean you have to deal with another sunset tomorrow. You don't have to build in a problem for yourself 6 or 7 years later. Now is the time to kind of fix it once and for all, and that's why the Connect XT is such an exciting product. It also allows you to get onto the Alula network, which is purpose-built for security. Paul, why don't you talk about some of the importance of network and why we value it so highly?
Well, like you said, it was purpose-built for security. The Alula network has been built over the past 10 years specifically for security with dedicated connections to central stations. And our connections down to the hardware have been always through a VPN. So the cellular connections are going through that private network. They're not exposed to the wider internet. And also what that allows us to do when we have that VPN or that private tunneling network is it allows us to stay connected to the hardware at all times. We don't have to implement like a polling type of a scheme where we ask every 10 seconds, is there something new, and then we finally get the response, and then we can show it on the UI where you have those delays. We're always connected 100% of the time, and therefore our responsiveness is just lightning fast. And I don't know if anybody on this call has experienced this, but it's almost like the UI knows what you're going to do before you even do it, because when you click that button to turn on a light or open the garage door or something, it's just immediate. And that's number one because of that VPN, but it's also number two because of Alula controlling that whole vertically integrated chain of hardware, network, and user interface. And so it allows us to just really stitch things together very tightly. And, you know, you really notice this in the home automation space, like I was saying. When you go to unlock a lock on a front door, when you go to turn a light on, that's really where you notice that the benefit of that vertical integration and the benefit of that fast response.
Yeah, Paul, I've actually heard stories in the industry of people using other networks who, it doesn't sound like, 1 second or 2 seconds of a delay. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when your customer is expecting the light to come on, it feels like an eternity. And what they do is they keep mashing the button. Why isn't this working? And they're trying to turn it on, and suddenly, before you know it, they've overloaded the system. And so it adds up quickly. It's a convenience, but it's also going to save you a lot of calls and a lot of headaches. And as you can see from our friend Khalil down in Houston, notifications are lightning fast, and his customers appreciate that, and your customers will as well. Paul, you alluded to it, but one of the things we pride ourselves on is that we're also completely locked down, and that our network is completely end-to-end encrypted. So, Paul, I know this is a personal passion of yours as well. Talk about how we did that.
Yeah, well, this once again speaks to our vertical integration and control of the entire chain. We don't have any interfaces to other companies, and that allows us to control the whole environment. So that allows us to keep it more secure. And we have the same, strong encryption algorithms others use, but there's just other things we do that I think make us even more secure. And one of those things is when something is a local device, like a sensor or a keypad, we try to keep those local. We try not to expose those to the internet. So we just, no exposure to the external network from local devices in the system, and that really helps out because we keep our connection outward to that one very strongly encrypted and protected VPN connection. Everything else connects locally. Now, those local connections, of course, are also encrypted. So any wireless interface that we have on site, any wired interface, even any interface on the PCB itself, from chip to chip, we encrypt and protect all of those interfaces. So we try to really lock down the system from every angle and keep it secure. And we own all the traffic. We keep a very limited attack surface. Our operating systems are proprietary. We don't have an operating system exposed to the internet like Linux that has millions of programmers that know how to write applications and try to download nefarious applications. We're just not exposed that way. Everything is proprietary, and everything is locked down to that one VPN or private connection. And really the value to the dealer there is number one, high uptime. We control that whole space, and so we're not exposed to a lot of things going on out there in the internet that are going to take us down, and also just avoiding those embarrassing security events that we see out there. It's just really a professional experience for the customers on the ground.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, we've all seen those terrible stories in the media that really threaten to give a black eye to our profession, even though ultimately where we see this happening is with consumer-grade products. And that's why we pride ourselves on being a pro-grade product and having security professionals involved in the experience. It helps avoid some of those really embarrassing and frankly, potentially dangerous breaches. But one of the things we have right now, obviously there are, different states are experiencing different levels of kind of stay-at-home or return-to-work type orders. And so you may have customers out there who are not looking to have someone come in their home right now. And one of the things that's so great about the Connect XT is we've actually made it so that you can guide the customer to install it themselves in their Simon, and so that you don't even have to actually visit the site. So, Paul, talk about just how easy this is.
Well, as you know, all the Simon XTs are pretty much all the same. They look different from the front. Some of them have a touch screen, some of them don't, some of the older ones, but they all hinge downward. They all have the same slot for the radio. They all have the POTS line in the same place in case you need to unplug an old POTS line and get rid of that. But yeah, the way we've designed this, it's just a matter of plugging it in. First of all, activating the account on Alula, taking the old communication system out, whether that be POTS or an old radio, and then just plugging it in. You don't even have to power down the panel. There's no harm in unplugging the old radio with the panel still powered up, and there's no harm in plugging our new radio in the way we've designed it on that connector. So you even avoid having the customer having to disconnect the battery or disconnect the power supply. So really, it's just a matter of taking the old one out and putting the new one in, and that's something that's easily done by a homeowner. That's something that's easily talked through by you as a dealer with a homeowner on the phone. It takes about 5 minutes, and I think you've got a video showing that here, Kevin.
Yeah, it's. Let me actually show the video, and Paul, maybe you can talk through what we're seeing here. It's actually available on the Alula website. Paul, are you able to see it here now?
We can see it.
Why don't you go ahead and talk us through this?
Sounds good. Yeah, like I said, all of the different models of Simon XT tend to open in a very similar way. They have a hinge on the bottom. Some of them have a bezel to take off, as you can see there. Sometimes there's a couple screws at the top to hold them together. Those screws may or may not be there depending on how it was installed. Sometimes it's just a clip on the top there. You can see it's being unclipped there at the top, and it rotates down. And there is the old radio exposed. There may or may not be screws. There's room for 4 screws on that old radio, and there may or may not be screws there. Sometimes there's just one down by the connector, but take out the screws if there are some. Take that old radio out and discard it, and then put the new Connect XT under the tabs at the bottom, rotate it up and plug in the connector, and replace any screws. We do recommend at least one screw right by the connector there just to make sure that that connection stays secure, but the rest of the radio is typically held very nicely by those tabs at the bottom. You can see the LEDs are already on there. It's already connected to the Alula platform. Even as he was putting the final screws in, that antenna just slots right in there on that slot at the top, and then it's just a matter of rotating it back up and putting it all together. And you can see it didn't even have to power it down. The Simon just kept running as usual, and as that new radio is plugged in, it connected up to the Alula network, and assuming that it was all registered prior, there we go. The customer has the Alula app downloaded. You can see all the sensor names that were read out of the Simon when the radio was first plugged in, and is able to arm and disarm using the Alula app. And like I said, it's literally a 5-minute process. All it takes is a Phillips screwdriver and somebody who's willing to be your hands on site. And these are the sorts of things that can really provide value for your business. We're going to talk about the pricing and everything here in a few minutes, but if you can have a homeowner do this kind of thing and add this sort of functionality to their own system, even if they don't add any of the automation or video when they first put this in, if it's just simply a sunset kind of replacement, you can always swing back as their dealer later and add those sorts of functions as a callback to that customer when we're able to get out and do more of that as this COVID thing lets us go here.
Certainly, and even after COVID, as you point out, there's a value in the efficiency of that installation for our pros. We've all seen in previous sunsets how expensive and time-consuming they can be, and so we were really thoughtful about that when we designed this product to make sure that we help you overcome this burden. So, Paul, give us the takeaway. What are the key points that we should walk away with on this?
Just to sum it all up, Connect XT is a cellular communicator for the 4 versions of Simon XT that are out there, the XT itself, the XTI, the XTI5, and then the XTI5i, which I think wasn't out there much. But those 4 big versions of Simon XT that went out there into the marketplace, and a lot of installations out there, a lot of opportunity out there for you dealers. It's great for sunset replacement. of the current radios, and the thing that makes it really great for a sunset replacement is that you are avoiding future sunsets by putting a technology in Category M1 that is a 5G compatible technology. So as far as the eye can see, that radio is going to work in the future. It allows you beyond the sunset value to add a lot of functionality to the old Simon XT installation. You can add video, you can add home automation. And I'm thinking about this. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of 4G LTE radios were replaced with the Connect XT, as well as some of the old 3G, just simply for the feature upgrades. The other thing I should mention here that a lot of you will know about, but we also have at Alula, we have a line of GE compatible sensors. So that's another little source of upgrade here. If your customer wants to add another sensor on a garage door or on a liquor cabinet or something like that, we've got the sensors that we can provide, and you can upsell more sensors as well as part of this. But just lots of opportunity out there for this product, and in both the sunset replacements and the takeover upgrade space.
And you can see the part numbers there at the bottom. So Connect XT-V, that's the Verizon one. Connect XT-A is the AT&T one. Connect XT-VZ is the Verizon one with the Z-Wave. And then Connect XT-AZ is the AT&T card with the Z-Wave. And then, Paul, you alluded to it earlier. This is a really exciting program that we're offering in connection with this new product. So take us through this rebate offer.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a really, you look at these prices there on the right-hand side. So there's 3 different models here. One is just the straight Connect XT, and the second one is XT with video, where you get interactive control and video. And then the last one there is all 3. You get the interactive control, the video, and the Z-Wave home automation. But I mean, in all these cases here, you can see it's like $40 or $50 to put this radio in, and it's just to me that is amazing, because when you think about that, if you can get a process rolling whereby you're able to have your customers put these radios in with guidance from you over the phone, you're looking at, there's no cost to roll that truck, and you're looking at a $50 or $40 cost for the radio, and to me that's just a really good deal, a really cost-effective way to keep those customers rolling out there that might have older radios or POTS lines that need replacing.
Yeah, Paul, it's not just a good deal on the front end when you're paying $40 to add video to an existing system, but that also means you're adding RMR to that account. So what it's going to allow is that rolling forward, that's going to be a more valuable account to you, and you're going to get more RMR every single month. So it's a great deal on the front end, but Paul, I think it's even a better deal on the back end.
That's a great point. That is an excellent point, Kevin.
Okay, well, hey, Paul, thank you so much for taking the time to walk us through down memory lane. I really got a kick out of hearing the stories of how Simon was developed. And I'm really excited about the Connect XT and all the ways it's going to build on the legacy of Simon. Paul, obviously we've got a lot of questions from our audience. They're excited as well. Do you have a moment to stick around and take a few questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Let's get to it. All right. Thank you all for joining us. Very excited about the Connect XT. Paul, are you ready to take a few questions here?
Absolutely. I'm here, Kevin.
Awesome. First question comes to us from Russ. Russ asks, do you use the existing antenna with the Connect XT?
No, we don't. The Connect XT ships with its own antenna. We want to make sure we have a good antenna that covers those 700 megahertz frequencies, and so we just ship an antenna along with the Connect XT, and you just use that new antenna. You can ditch the old antenna along with the old radio.
And Paul, how does the new antenna compare to the existing antenna that might be there in the system? I mean, could that antenna itself be something of an upgrade?
It could. I mean, you know, it's quite possible that the existing antenna would work just fine. You know, depending on a lot of things, depending on the coverage in that particular spot, and what type of a system that antenna was servicing, whether it was CDMA or 3G GSM, it might make a little bit of a difference. But you know, in the absence of any certainty there of what was there, we just want to make sure that the antenna that gets put in with Connect XT is the best it can be. So and actually, this might be a good opportunity to mention that in addition to that internal antenna that slots into the Simon there, we do also offer a couple different remote antennas that could be used with the Simon panel. You know, so if you have a situation where maybe the Simon panel is down in a basement or in a bad spot, you can remote the antenna. You know, if you have a way to get that thing remotely through the wall up to a higher spot in the building. And I think our longest one is 5 meters, which would be, you know, up to 15 feet away, which is that can help a lot in a lot of cases. So that's sold as a separate antenna, just as a separate SKU, you know, aside from the one that we ship with the Connect XT. Most situations, that antenna we ship in the box is going to work just fine.
Yeah, we wouldn't want them harvesting that existing antenna because it would also take a lot more time and take away from the efficiency of the install.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, the antenna is all connected up with the board as it comes shipped, so that's just part of the efficiency of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Another question comes in. Does Alula have a solution for Simon 3s?
We do not. No, at this time anyway, we don't have a solution for Simon 3. That's going back a long ways. I believe there was a daughter card slot in that panel, but we do not have a solution for that.
Okay. On that same similar topic, Robert asks, does Alula have a solution for 2 gig?
Well, aside from potentially wiring the BAT Connect in for alarm reporting, no, we do not. We don't have an integrated radio for 2 gig. We never did an integration for 2 gig and did that partnership with those guys. Not that we couldn't in the future if there's enough interest, but nothing for 2 gig at the moment.
Okay. Another question from Russ. Which models of the Connect XT support video?
Well, all of them do, actually. There's nothing about the Connect XT hardware that supports the video on site. And so, you know, our video solution is actually, in terms of the hardware on site, it's completely independent of that hardware. So you can put our video solution in without any radio or Alula panel. A lot of people don't realize that. I think maybe Russ was referring to the slide that showed the pricing and the rebate. And the reason we do a higher rebate for installing video alongside the Connect XT is because there is a recurring revenue component to video as well. So you're putting cameras in as well as that recurring revenue component, and so we give you a better rebate on the Connect XT. But all of those Connect XTs, all 4 of them, the AT&T, the Verizon, and then each one of those with Z-Wave hardware, all of those would support Alula video.
Thanks for clearing that up, Paul. You mentioned those different tiers of rebates, that slide about the rebates. We had an additional question on that one. Are those rebates processed through the distributor, or do they come directly with Alula?
Those are directly through Alula. So that Sunset program is a program that is set up directly with Alula. And Kevin, you may be able to give more details on how to sign up for that, or we can certainly get them out to Russ post-webinar here. That'd be no problem.
Yeah, in fact, if you look in the chat box, Bob Meinert has helpfully posted the URL. It's alula.com/sunset. And all you have to do is sign up and fill out the form there, and we'll take care of you and get you that rebate. And the reason we do it that way, to be clear, is you're buying through distribution. Of great relationships with distribution. We don't want to burden them with the administrative paperwork associated with this program. So you're going to still buy through this distribution, but we will handle the rebate processing aspect of it. Another question comes to us from Mark Luke. Asks, does the 934Z Z-Wave card work on the Simon XT communicator?
That's a great question. The card actually looks similar, but it's not the same card, Mark. The card that works on the Simon XT communicator, which is the Connect XT, is actually a different card than the 934Z that works on the Connect Plus or the BAT Connect. And it's because of the tight space in the back of the Simon XT. We just don't have the space for that large through-hole plug-in connector, so we had to go to a real small surface mount connector for the Simon XT radio, and so that made that card into a different card from a compatibility standpoint. But, you know, the electronics are very similar on each one. There are some differences. The antennas are a little bit different. And we don't have the translator version that like we do on the Connect Plus. It's just Z-Wave on the Connect XT.
Excellent. I think you mentioned this during the program, but I want to check anyway. Question is, can I add new sensors, and do they have to be Alula sensors?
The answer is yes, you can add new sensors. In fact, we sell new sensors. We have our GE compatible line of sensors, a very nice line of sensors, a very nice nano that we call it, door window sensor, a motion detector, a bunch of different environmental sensors like a water detector, a temperature sensor, tilt. So we've got a full line of GE compatible sensors. You can put those onto the Simon panel directly, and I know you can't get sensors from Interlogix anymore. There may be a few other places, but I think Alula is your best bet for upgrading these customers in terms of the number of sensors they have in the house too. And you know, we might have some sensors that you may not have really seen anywhere else, like that water sensor is dynamite. You can detect water as well as two different temperature thresholds, an overheat threshold and a freeze threshold. So it's like three sensors in one in terms of the zones that you can program into the Simon XT. So yeah, good line of sensors. Thanks for asking.
Thank you. And now we've got a follow-up question from Mark Luke again. I suspect he's an existing Alula Pro because he seems quite familiar with the product line. Because Mark is asking, is the Simon XT Z-Wave card available as a later purchase? Clearly, he's kind of referring to the fact that Connect Plus, you can upgrade later with a Z-Wave card that you can insert. But can you do that with the Simon XT?
I believe you can. Yep, I believe you can.
Wow.
It's a separate card, and it's actually got VHB tape on the back. And you peel off the protective coating and snap it down on that card. It's a little bit of a tricky install, but I believe we do have that as a separate SKU. I'm not 100% certain on that, Mark. We will swing back after the webinar here and confirm.
Great question, Mark. Actually, I learned something myself there. That was not the answer I was expecting. Another question, Paul. We mentioned that the Connect XT can be installed by a homeowner in these times where people may not be wanting someone to come on site with them necessarily. How would one of our Alula Pros be able to see the cell strength at that customer's home if they're not currently on site?
You can see that on the Alula Connect portal. So, you know, the procedure there would be to set up the account for your customer on Alula Connect, on your account on Alula Connect, get it all set up and ready to go, and then you mail the hardware out to your customer, walk them through putting it in over the phone. Should take 5 or 10 minutes like we saw in that video. Get it all powered up. It connects up, and you can be looking on Alula Connect during that whole process. You know, the customer can see the LEDs on the card, So they can see the signal strength and the number of bars there, but you can also see it on Alula Connect. And so while they're putting it in real time, you can see it come online while you're watching that portal, and then you can also see the signal strength. And, everything you might do to help that out, were you to be on site, you can walk them through that as well in terms of repositioning or whatever they might need to do. In the vast majority of cases, you should be in the clear there, and there should be nothing else to do. Certainly if you're taking out an old cellular card, the chances that you'd be putting this Connect XT in with M1 technology and have a problem when the old one was working right are extremely low. I can't envision any reason that would be the case. So you should have a real good experience there from a signal standpoint. Now, if you're replacing POTS, there is the chance that you're in a spot with bad cell coverage, and because you're kind of, you're not replacing an existing cell solution, so you don't have that historical working solution there. So you might run into some things there where you could have a little bit of issue. But like I say, you can always look at that on Alula Connect and be there alongside your customer as they're putting it in.
Absolutely. That's a good point, Paul. And this will be our last question. It's about automation. Can we add existing automation devices to the Simon using the Connect XT? What are the device requirements for control in the Alula app?
The requirements are that they be Z-Wave, and so that is what's supported by that automation card on the Connect XT. And it pretty much any Z-Wave device out there is supported. We've been supporting Z-Wave for many years, and so we really don't have a stringent requirement in terms of the version of Z-Wave or the age of the Z-Wave device. So the answer is yes, and the way to do that would be you first have to, in Z-Wave, you first have to delete that device out of its old system. You don't have to necessarily have the old system powered up, but that device needs to go through a process whereby it thinks it's deleted from its old network. And so we have that in our app. We have that capability in our app to delete that old device from its old system, and then go ahead and add it to the Alula app. We have the process built into the Alula app to do the exact same thing. And so those are the types of things that you can also walk your customer through if they already have that, or you can obviously do that on site with your own installer. But the answer is yes to that question.
Excellent. Well, we're going to have to leave it there, Paul. I know that you're busy and have to get to your next meeting, but thank you for taking the extra time today to answer these questions. It's been very informative.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Kevin.
All right, and thank you all for staying tuned. If you have any other questions, please go to www.alula.com. You can call 1-888-88-ALULA, or you can reach out to me. I'm at kevin.hoffman@alula.net. I'll make sure to get the question to your proper person and to make sure that you're acquainted with your salesperson. So, Robert, I see asking get a last question there. Will there be a link published for this webinar? Yes, there will be a link on alula.com under webinars, /webinars. You'll also find it on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Alula. And if you signed up for the webinar, you should be getting a follow-up email that will also include a link to the recorded presentation in case you want to share it with anybody else in your shop. So thank you, Robert, for that opportunity to do the plug. Thank you all for attending, and I will see you next time.